If I can transfer quickly and ask Dr. Lynch to come up. Dr. Lynch will receive his pharmacy degree from Rutgers University and is a practicing clinical pharmacist. He serves as adjunct faculty at the Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine, Department of Emergency Medicine. His pharmacy background includes over 37 years of clinical practice. He is a member of the Office of National Drug Control Policy, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, HIDA, National Marijuana Initiative Subject Matter Expert Speakers Bureau, and serves as the Pharmacy Internship Program Preceptor. He is also an expert affiliate council member of the International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis and a healthcare partner of the Keep Delaware Safe and Healthy Coalition and for the State of Delaware Substance Abuse Epidemiological Outcomes Working Group. Bill, it says, I'll call you Dr. Lynch, serves as an advisory board member with Attack Addiction and is also a member of the Camden County, New Jersey Addiction Awareness Task Force. Will you be a member now of our task force as well? He is a certified State of New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety Division of Criminal Justice Police Training Commission instructor. He also serves as the Gloucester Township, New Jersey Police Department SAVE Program advisor, also as a Central Virginia Overdose Working Group member, and as a New Jersey State Police Regional Operations Intelligence Center Drug Monitoring Initiative Fusion Center, that's a lot of words together, partner, and Health and Prevention Sharing Network partner. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Lynch.
So good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the boring introduction with regards to all the stuff we're involved in, but we're actually a pretty busy kind of guy. We're going to talk about vaping illicit substances. What is really in there, God knows, and even he or she's not sure. And we're going to show you that there's some pretty interesting things out there with regards to what's going on with vapes. So this is not without any help. There's a lot of people who've actually helped out with this. So yes, Rachel Lynch, that's my daughter. She's a clinical pharmacist in Delaware. My son, Eric, is a clinical pharmacist in Wilmington. Don't worry, not everybody in the Lynch family is pharmacists. My wife is in accounting. She keeps track of all the Lynch legal drug money in our house, and I stress the legal drug money in our house. It also comes with all these students here who've actually rotated through the HIDA NMI internship program with us, so they have contributed significantly to the information you'll hear about today. So vapes, vaping any potential entity or substance, that's essentially what vapes are now. You can put anything in there and it can actually be vaped. The other issue is, it's very concerning, is this new data from the CDC that was released this year that in the United States now, vaping and smoking is the leading cause of overdose deaths more so than injection. That's a game changer. So now anything that goes in there can be a big issue. And this shows you how that's dramatically changed with regards to the bar graph there on the right is actually the number of smoking and vaping who've actually overdosed and died more so than the other ones from injection. So it shows you how those numbers have gone up. And this presentation was developed when we actually presented in Atlanta, Georgia at the National RX Summit with Captain Piotrowski. And during putting that together for New Jersey State Police, he said to me, you know, Bill, technology is making it easier for people to die. And that's our phone and our vapes. You can get this stuff in an instant. You can put it in a vape in an instant, you can use it in an instant, and much faster than even getting a pizza ordered and delivered to your house. So what about the electronic vaping product data with regards to national survey data? This shows you from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in 2021. This is where those sites were. And this just gives you the demographics with regards to how that breaks up with regards to gender, ethnicity, and those kind of things. But what's interesting about this is that how has this actually evolved? And this actually shows other state data with regards to how patients have actually presented. And what it shows you here is in particular that on the right here, it shows you that 55% of those students in the state of Michigan have vaped before the age of 13. 96% by the time they're 16. So significant amounts of youth actually vaping at very young ages. And I will tell you, the youngest person I took care of in our emergency department who was a vaping patient was 6. His brother liked bubblegum flavored vapes. He likes bubblegum flavor. He's 6 years old. He's going to try it. And now he's in our hospital with nicotine poisoning from the bubblegum flavored vapes. So this actually breaks down with regards to gender and with regards to who use it. Not surprising that those individuals who are lesbian, gay, transgender, those kind of things have more of an issue where they'll try to vape to deal with things. This actually brings up, with regards to e-cigarettes here, showing an increase and cigarette smoking going tremendously decreasing, but it's being replaced by actually individuals who vape. And so that's the concern. It's just a replacement for this. It shows you 7.6% of those Michigan adults are vaping, but it shows you 22% of those who are younger adults are actually vaping. So it's a significantly younger patient population who's gravitating to using vapes. So then with regards to illicit substances from the state level, again, this is what we found in New Jersey, looking at 2,900 illicit vapes that were seized. Not surprising, Delta 9, 80% of the vapes were Delta 9. You can also see in there Delta 6, which is hexahydrocannabinol, cannabigerol, all of those with regards to in our vaping devices. The concern is, of the 2,944 that were actually illicit vapes, the question becomes, how old are these people who are actually vaping? Well, it shows you here for the 2,849 people involved, the median age was 23, meaning half of them were younger than 23, and the peak age there is 18. So again, a much younger population who's actually using and abusing. This shows you with regards to reports of gender, it is significant when looking at 84% of them are actually male and 16% are female. This is actually naturally occurring in normal vapes. It also shows you 64% of them are white. But what's important here is that how it changes with when it's illicit vapes versus regular vapes, and we'll talk about that too. This shows you vaping-related overdoses in our OD map have gone up significantly in New Jersey, and then some of these substances include synthetic marijuana, PCP, LSD, cocaine, alcohol, those kind of things in particular. Naloxone was administered about 50% of the time to these patients. The gender here, though, now shows you that with regards to illicit vapes, it is 58% male and 42% female. So when we start looking about illicit vapes, the gender gap closes to being almost a 50-50 split, 60-40 even, and above that, compared to it being much more male when it's actually just regular vaping. And then 69%, again, were actually white patients. So what about vapes? They're a delivery system. A vaping device is just like a syringe. I can put anything in a syringe I want now, and I can actually give that to you just under your skin, subcutaneously. I can actually give it subdermally. I can give it intramuscularly. I can give it intravenously. Well, now I can put anything in a vape and give that to someone as well. And that's what's happening. This shows you 5th generation pod mods, ultra portable. They're like a smaller than a clicker that we'd use up here in presenting. They made into nicotinic salts. That's important because when you make something a salt, you can make it much more concentrated. That's what Juul did, so much more nicotine in there. And alcohol content. Ooh. There's sometimes that these things are dissolved in alcohol in the cartridge and no one even knows alcohol is in there and actually get exposed to alcohol. And we'll talk about the significance of that. Hacking the Juul. These individuals can actually go out on YouTube. You can actually type in hacking the Juul, and it will show you how to modify that Juul product in literally 90 seconds to take and empty out what's in your empty Juul pod and put in there anything you want, and then put it back together, put it in your vaping device, and actually inhale it. So the issue now is that electronic nicotine delivery systems are now electronic drug delivery systems with anything being put in there. So one of the concerns now is the new kids in town, nicotine analogs. It's not just about nicotine anymore. And so what it shows you here is that in February, Puff Bar with disposable e-cigarettes developed synthetic nicotine, claiming it was exempt from federal and state laws and didn't fit the tobacco laws. In April of 2022, they said the pre-market tobacco product application, they didn't have to submit because it wasn't a nicotine product. And these non-nicotine tobacco alkaloids, including anabasin, nornicotine, natabine, myosimine, all of them are addictive and reinforcing the effects, but they're not controlled by this because they were synthetic. And in the 70s, they have never been more of these commercially products, even they were developed back then, now available as they're putting nicotine analogs out there as well. Nicotinamide is one of them. It's actually a form of vitamin B3. It has no supposedly pharmacological activity on the nicotinic receptors. It does not activate nicotinic acetylcholinergic receptors, which your previous speaker was talking about, how that then goes and activates dopamine receptors. That's why people like to vape, chew, smoke. And then nixamide is actually a proprietary blend of nicotinamide, and that has vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol in it. Anybody remember the Valley injury with propylene glycol and vitamin E acetate? Now we're putting a vitamin B vitamin in there. This is pretty scary stuff. Nixidine and nicotine, which is a flavored nixidine, is also another nicotine analog that's out there. The problem is that nicotinamide is generally recognized as safe for a food additive because it is a vitamin. But the problem with that is we lived through this with other food additives with the flavorings. We had the Avali issue where people were actually vaping flavorings that were made for food, and it wasn't designed to be inhaled in a vaping device and having all kinds of problems. And it shows you here that nicotinamide can cause respiratory irritation, especially if you inhale the dust or aerosols from it. So why would we want to put that in a vaping device? There's also 6-methyl-nicotine that is more toxic than nicotine itself. The analogs have never been commercialized before, and there's increased cytotoxicity seen with this 6-methyl-nicotine. Spree bar has metatine, that's actually imatine as well, is a benzoic acid salt of 6-methyl-nicotine. So again, you can see how they're making all these analogs. It does not meet the tobacco product definition, so they don't require this filing with the PMTA again. It's sponsored, a manufacturer sponsored, claimed that 6-methyl-nicotine was less addictive than nicotine, and we've never heard that from the cigarette industry about nicotine wasn't addictive before. So all these same patterns that have been shown before. This is variability in the containing of those nicotine analogs. This one showed about it containing 5% 6-methyl-nicotine in the concentration nicotinamide 12, 24, and 36 milligrams. We've seen also where the fact that both nicotinamide and 6-methyl-nicotine were detected in samples, even though the 6-methyl-nicotine wasn't reported. We have seen that before with the industry. And it contained about 7 to 46% less than what was on the label. So again, not actual reporting on the label that was accurate. And it did not list 6-methyl-nicotine at all in the product 2 sample that they looked at. The other concern is that these products contain only one stereoisomer, which is actually the S isomer of the 6-methyl-nicotine, which is more potent and addictive than the R isomer, which is the right side. There's also an artificial sweetener in there, neotame. There's a synthetic coolant, which makes it easier. It doesn't feel irritating to the back of the throat. And there are also various flavorants that could be in there as well. The problem is there's discrepancies on the labeling and measured concentrations of these nicotine analogs, so they're not accurate in their reporting, which is a concern. They're largely unknown what the chronic inhalation hazards would be if we actually use these nicotine analogs. There's an advent of nicotine analog-containing products that are unknown for any of these health risks. So again, it's uncharted territory that we're going to. And one of the biggest problems here is that neotame is a high-intensity sweetener that is 7,000 to 13,000 times sweeter than sucrose, and with high heat stability not previously reported. So even when it's heated up to these very high temperatures, the sweetness doesn't go away. Again, once again, appealing to our youth and young adults. There's an odorless synthetic coolant, which again, to decrease the back of the throat irritation, WS23. And it's concerning because the increased appeal to these first-time users, the inhalation risk remains unknown. Health risk cannot be assessed because of human exposure studies. We don't have it to these things. The nicotine analog should be urgently addressed by lawmakers and regulators because the FDA should have the capability to regulate these if they would be able to step in. So the conclusion is that the 6-methyl-nicotine is a complex form of nicotine. The manufacturers would challenge it in court if the FDA challenges them on having to file the proper procedures to get this approved. Also, the 6-methyl-nicotine is being marketed as a drug, that it's not possibly sold legally unless the FDA approved it. And they also reduces confidence, unfortunately, in the FDA's ability to regulate these things and also undermines its protective efforts for our public safety. So what about the prevalence of vaping, looking at what has happened? Because marijuana has changed significantly in the last 7 years. This shows you in this graph of 2016 that the black square at the top is actually herbs or the joints and blunts of marijuana. And then the actually gold circle is cannabis oil, and the triangle is actually concentrates. And you can see in 2017, the last 7 years, concentrates and oils, concentrates and oils, concentrates and oils going way up for availability compared to plant material in the United States was significant. These vaping devices also show you here that Pax Era with that little snowflake thing that was actually made by the Juul manufacturer. You can put plant material in there and you can actually vape marijuana. The little section there, the second one in from the left is actually for putting dabs in there, and then this shows you the next one with the little marijuana leaf in white, marijuana cartridges, and then that inhaler there, if it wasn't bad enough, you can have aero inhalers, tangerine haze, that kind of stuff that have THC in it and get exposed to marijuana that way. So what about actually, do individuals who use vapes, do they go on to use marijuana? These are 21 studies combined, ages 10 to 24, and compare the rates of use of marijuana if they should use it, looking at over 113,000 patients. And what it shows you here on the graph is that the number 1 there at the bottom is actually the odds ratio. Anytime the odds ratio is greater than 1, it means that that was a factor in determining if people vape, do they go on to use marijuana? And you can see these boxes shift to the right significantly because, oh, yes, they do. They go on to use marijuana. And this next one shows you with regards to that is that they do so at a much younger age even faster because the boxes at the top are 12 to 17-year-olds, and then the ones at the bottom are 18 to 26. And it shows that they gravitate to using marijuana even faster if they actually start at a younger age. The other question about these is that what happens with regards to e-cigarette deterioration? So this actually looked at Canthal wiring, where on the left is actually a wire that's inside your coil in a vaping device. On the left is brand new. And after 1 burn or 50 burns, and to the far right 150 burns, you can see these little things look like snowflakes and chunks coming off, because what's ends up happening is the coil's starting to break down. People change their cartridge to their vaping device. They don't change the vaping device. And when they use it repeatedly, more and more of these metal flakes are breaking off. So this shows you here the Canthal wire is made up of manganese, chromium, aluminum, iron. Nichrome wire is iron, nickel, and chromium. And notice there with the blue line and the red line that are solid, it shows you that at 30 gauge, these wires heat up to anywhere from 1100 to 1200 degrees centigrade, not Fahrenheit. 100 degrees centigrade is boiling, 212 degrees is boiling in Fahrenheit, but it also shows you it gets up to about 800 to 900 degrees centigrade if there's something in it. And the concern there is that when you take some of these chemical entities and hit them up to those kind of temperatures, what kind of thermodynamic reaction do you get? And a lot of things start to change. So the problem is you can convert delta 9 from delta 8, delta 10, THCO, CBD. If you take CBD from our hemp bill, 0.3%, and make that, and then you take the CBD and add heat and acid to it, you can make delta 8. But if I add delta 8 with regards to heating and put it in a vaping device, I can have it convert to delta 9. Potential to convert via vaping because it's so hot. And this shows you here delta 8, delta 10, delta 9, CBD, all of those structures have 21 carbons, 30 hydrogen, and 2 oxygen. It's the same number of carbons, hydrogen, and oxygens except where they're structured. And delta 8, delta 9, delta 10, where the circles are, the only change is where the double bond is. So through heating, I can change the double bond. There's also THC variants. THCO acetate increases the potency by about 3-fold. With regards to THC, there's hexahydrocannabinol that actually is hydrogenated, similar to what we do for margarine, 80% THC potency there, and it's hemp-derived. HHC is available. You can get that online. But the question is when people vape, what happens to them? So when we actually look at a chest x-ray on someone, your lung should look like that. The lung tissue should look black. And you can see the white thing there with regards to some of the air passages in the lungs. But then if somebody actually vapes THC, what does it look like? Well, it looks like that. You do not need to have to be a certified pulmonologist. You can be a goofy overnight pharmacist like me and figure out that ain't good. And the key there is it's what's called tree in bloom. So if you look at some of those structures that are difficult to see up there, it actually has what looks like a branch of a tree and a trunk, and then it blooms like the leaves are blooming at the top. And that's how you can tell the tree in bloom effect is truly from those individuals who have actually vaped THC. Now the next question is what else shows up? Well, this is actually a 20-year-old A in the top left-hand corner. You can see the sludge at the bottom there with regards to their lung changes. B is off to the right, which is actually eosinophilic pneumonia. When you have a reaction, you have eosinophilia. That's actually cells that actually attack things that it's taking as being an allergic reaction. You increase your eosinophils. So that's attacking the lungs there. In the bottom left is C, which is hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So they're hypersensitive with those white things there. And then on the right is D, which is my favorite. That was a 49-year-old woman who had giant interstitial cell pneumonia because she had a piece of cobalt break off of her coil and lodge into her lung. That doesn't dissolve. And the only way we go in there is through bronchoscopy, where we go in and take it out. So that's what we're talking about. The other thing is, what about CBD? Well, CBD is not, as I like to nickname it, cannabinol, because people think that cannabis, and in particular CBD, is benign. What's not in this presentation is we have information we're working on with our students right now where there's now documented well over 1,000 medication interactions with THC and or CBD. So if you're on any medication and you're using CBD, you should ask about, does your medication interact with CBD, because there are many that do, well over 600. The other thing is that with regards to this shows you Poison Control Center calls about CBD, calling in and asking about what's going on with CBD. And then the other problem is here where CBD oil in these vaping devices causing people to be poisoned because of what's either in there is CBD or not CBD or other additives. This shows you what happened with regards to that. In particular, this MEP Fubinaca is a synthetic cannabinoid. It was not just CBD. It shows you a nurse down there in the bottom in New Jersey. She was actually working at the hospital using CBD for her lower back pain, starts to have problems, walks outside, wandering the streets, is picked up by the police, brought back to the hospital. She's in uniform, she has her badge on. She's abandoned her patients because of the synthetic cannabinoid reaction she had when she thought she was just using CBD. The question is, what other drugs are in there? Well, this is ethanol, and this is a major one with regards to that, in that there's actually intoxication without the calories. So people don't want to drink their wine because they're going to put on weight, so instead they'll actually vape when actually it contains alcohol. So all of you know who you are out there, by a show of hands, who has vanilla extract in their kitchen cupboard at home. Come on, you know who you are out there. You have it out there. Well, unfortunately it's the fall, but pumpkin cookies are coming up. So it's the most wonderful time of the year. Here's the problem with vanilla extract. Vanilla extract is 70 proof, 35% alcohol. So if you have somebody who smells like vanilla and they're actually vaping in your downstairs basement, or they can be becoming intoxicated because of that. We will tell you, we have people in our hospital flagged in their electronic health record. If they smell like vanilla, we do a blood alcohol on them because they will go to Wawa and they will get boop, 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 number of vanilla extract bottles, and they drink it not to go through alcohol withdrawal. Significant with regards to that. So just be aware of that. These are actually other substances that are in there. It shows you all the cannabis ones, MDMA, heroin, fentanyl, any other benzodiazepines, special K, ketamine, and the like. So it's important for us, in any patients that we're dealing with, to ask them, do you use marijuana, cannabis, THC, CBD? And if you do use THC, do you use Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, THCO, THCA, or any other form? That's because this paper shows you derived psychoactive cannabis products, all 26 of them, that are derived from the hemp plant, not synthetic cannabinoids. So you have Delta 10, you have Delta THCV, you have Delta 6, you have THCPO, all of these out there. And they can be ordered online, which it shows you here, 804 of them, all these different cartridges or dabs or disposables or edibles, depending upon how you want to get it. And then this shows you year-to-date Delta 9 THC exposures with calls to poison control centers, which for this year, as of August, are up over 1,500 calls to poison control about Delta 8 exposures. And this shows you over the course of the years since 2021, it's over 9,500. And that fortunately is starting to go down, but that's because we're getting more familiar with dealing with Delta 8 patients, so we don't call poison control as often. It doesn't mean Delta 8 use is going down. It means we're just not calling poison control as much. There's also synthetic cannabinoids out here. They show you here Genie, K, Special K, Spice Gold, all different ones that are out there. The question is, if you get a package of 10X, does that look like regular marijuana, synthetic marijuana, lace marijuana, cut marijuana? You can't tell, you can't tell, you can't tell, you can't tell. And so this is actually 10X showing you that. This is actually Spice, what that shows like. Here's some packaging as well for Spice 99 and K2. So one night, we actually have an 18-year-old who comes into our emergency room with acute delirium. He's disoriented to person, place, and time. He doesn't know who he is, where he is, what time it is. Who's the President of the United States? Julius Caesar. Thank you for playing. But that's his reality, and he thinks that that's the case. So when he thinks the nurse is coming to take care of him as the big blue monster in her blue scrubs and punches her in the face, that's the reality disassociation that we're dealing with. His parents describe him, though, 5 days ago as a polite, engaging, cooperative college student. He goes to our psychiatric unit. He's there for about 10 days to 2 weeks. And the pharmacy student who was with me at the time, Dr. Cabanas, said, you know, Mr. Lynch, I've never seen anything like this. He was actually in our unit and discharged to a mental health facility. He will never be the same again. Paranoid schizophrenic, induced by the substances that he had in these vapes. And notice he was negative on a urine drug screen. We had no idea what was in his system. That's what we're talking about. If it couldn't get any worse, there was also synthetic cannabinoids. This was an outbreak that actually occurred where we had 324 of them, 8 deaths. But that's because this was laced with brodifacoum. Brodifacoum is a rat poison. It actually gets you to have a higher high, but you also can bleed to death. And the problem with that is we have to give you vitamin K to quickly reverse it intravenously, and then we put you on oral vitamin K for 6 months until it's totally out of your system so you don't bleed to death. And then just when you think it goes away, it rears its ugly head in Tampa, Florida, where now we have 42 hospitalized, 2 dead in Tampa from synthetic pot that also had brotificum. It has all kinds of outbreaks. So teens are now hiding dangerous drugs in their e-cigarettes. And can you actually have heroin vapes? TKO, total knockout? Absolutely. So it shows you on the right here in Morgantown, West Virginia, youth who thought they were only going to get cannabis oil, and they went and bought TKO, and it had the yellowish hue, and it looked like an oil when you take it back and forth, but there was no THC in there at all. It actually had heroin and flubromazolam and illicit benzodiazepine, and these kids had to be reversed with naloxone, thinking they were just going to vape some THC. Also, fentanyl reported in vapes that was actually out in San Diego from Imperial Haida. And the other thing with this, if you ever seize a vape, this is for all of our educators out there, law enforcement, first responders, gloves, mask, whatever. This was from a principal in a school in New Jersey who seized a vape, took it back to his office and was carrying it in his hand, and then fortunately his administrative secretary came in and found him passed out behind his desk from nicotine poisoning through absorbing it in his skin from carrying the vape, because nicotine can be absorbed through your skin. We make nicotine patches to put on people so that they actually stop smoking. So it can happen, so be careful when you handle these vapes. Man dies from vaping liquid fentanyl. This is from a very reliable source. You know, why talk about the New England Journal of Medicine? We can show you the New York Post said somebody died from this. It does happen. The problem we have also is that we know that we have 40 different fentanyl analogs in the drug supply already in New Jersey. So there are all kinds of fentanyl analogs that are out there. We also had the problem with regards to electronic vaping associated lung injury. You can see the big peak there, then it drops off to the right because we had some other thing happen in the United States. I forget what it was called, some kind of virus, something with a 19. So COVID hit, and then we all forgot about a valley. Well, a valley hasn't gone away. That's the concern. So there's also potential safety issues with seizures from people vaping because nicotine, especially on early exposure, causes vasoconstriction, especially the carotid artery. And we have younger kids who actually will seize with regards to them first trying nicotine because they vape it and it's so concentrated they're not used to it, and they get the vasoconstriction. So this shows youth year-to-date e-cigarette and liquid nicotine exposures cause the poison control centers for that. Looking at over 5,700 of those in 2024. And notice, unlike THC Delta 8, our calls with regards to problems of vaping have gone up significantly in the country calling poison control centers, and this is over 53,000 now for calls since 2021 in only 3 years. This shows you how that has increased each year, and now with the 5,700 we've had in 2024, that will surpass 8,500 if we continue on the same trajectory that we have seen during the year. What about actually other opiates? This shows you protonidazine and isonidazine, or ISO, which is actually 3 times more potent than fentanyl being found in vaping devices. This is also happening. The nidazines are found in powder or liquid form. I can take liquid form and put it into the vaping device. So it's possible to actually vape the nidazines. This shows you 10 of those analogs, just like fentanyl analogs. They're isonidazine analogs. The ones that have the asterisks we've already identified in the New Jersey drug supply. That's important. There's also GHB. That's actually in liquid form or powder form. This is a notorious date rape drug that people are using as well. And the problem is these are the side effects that individuals get from GHB, including drowsiness, dizziness, loss of coordination, and aggressive behavior. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes to kick in, seizures, coma, death, and unfortunately it's used for drug-facilitated crime for either robbing someone and or sexual assault. There are tons of different names for this. Obviously, Georgia Homeboy, GHB, Zonk, Wolfies, reference to organic Quaalude, all kinds of names with regards to it depending upon where you live. There's also other designer drugs. This was actually the N-bomb, which I had dealt with, telling you how I've been involved in this since 2012. We had actually had a patient who came in, 2 snorts of a purple drug up her nose, and she actually wasn't able to be woken up in our ICU for over 2 weeks. And finally woke up and said, oh, she should put this purple stuff up her nose. Unaware, again, of person, place, and time. All kinds of problems with that. The problem with the N-bomb is that it is extremely potent. If you take 1 grain of table salt and put that over here, that has 1 milligram, 50 milligrams of this stuff can actually, micrograms can actually have that kind of effect. It's like a cheap LSD, causes agitation, delirium, seizures, tachycardia, high heart rate, pyrexia is a high fever, and respiratory metabolic acidosis, and even death. What about cathinones? Cathinones can also be put on there. This actually shows you some bath salt street names and brands. This picturing is a Vanilla Sky, but there's White Lightning, Cotton Cloud, Snowy Day, Ocean Snow, Energy One, Drone, Lunar Wave, you name it, all different kinds of stuff for these kind of bath salts that also can actually be vaped. There's also Flakka and Gravel. This is actually a tweaked version of a bath salt, a synthetic cathinone called alpha PVP. Again, causing all kinds of problems, a major issue down in the Florida area. It causes strange behavior, anxiety, aggression, confusion, muscle twitches, which are myoclonic, so you're having a seizure, just having muscle twitches, or it can cause seizures. Increased sweating, so they have a lot of sweating going on, and their pupils are actually dilated. Mydriasis is dilated pupils instead of meiosis, the pinpoint pupils. So the problem is that Flakka, methamphetamine, ecstasy, cocaine, in that capsule from Broward County Sheriff Department, you have no idea. You have no idea what's in there. And it's actually called gravel because it looks like gravel at the bottom of a fish tank. Pink gravel, blue gravel, white gravel, those kind of things. There's also, if it wasn't bad enough, there is gray death. Gray death is a combination of heroin, fentanyl, U4770, synthetic opioid called Pinky, with or without carfentanil. This can be insufflated, snorted, and or smoked or vaped. Unfortunately, there were two individuals who, in Alabama, actually one person took it intravenously, one took it intranasally, and while the intranasal user was trying to perform CPR and his friend to save him, who took it intravenously, both of them died from the overdose. Significant potency with regards to gray death. And we had this near our area in Salem, Pennsylvania, or Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is not too far from where we actually work. So can you tell which methamphetamine is laced with fentanyl? You can't. And now you're dead. And this is an ad campaign from the Camden County Addiction Awareness Task Force in New Jersey, where we're affiliated with, because we're trying to get across to the methamphetamine and cocaine casual user that they don't know what's in there because stimulants are now the major drugs are being cut with fentanyl. And that's the issue. They're fentanyl naive, they're not used to it, they get exposed to it, they have a problem with it, and now they either overdose and or don't survive because of that exposure. But if it couldn't get any worse, why transport cocaine when I can transport the precursor to cocaine, and I can do so in a liquid form? So now I have cocaine dissolved in a water-based solution. It's dissolved in water and acid. It's in an acidic environment. It's in solution in those, oh, by the way, that shows you liquid cocaine in that beaker, and it was packaged in Bailey's Irish cream bottles. Because if I just add some Drano to it, a base, I have cocaine. So that's what they're doing now, transporting the precursors to this kind of stuff. It changes from a solid to a liquid. There's also shows you here intermediate drugs that are prodrugs. 1,4-butanediol is the precursor to GHB. And the problem with that, if it's GHB and law enforcement stops me, I'm in trouble. If it's the precursor, if they haven't controlled 1,4-butanediol, I'm not in trouble. So that's the concern there. This shows you either a base or a salt form with cocaine and methamphetamine. Again, it's dissolved, and then a salt form is dissolved in water, and then based on whether I add an acid or a base, I can have it convert to solid methamphetamine or solid cocaine. This shows you the transportation and the manufacturing of liquid meth. So actually at the border in San Cedro, they had an officer there who actually has a big long glove when they reach into the gas tank of the vehicle, and they're actually looking to see if there's packaged bundles of methamphetamine in there or heroin or something else. And when he pulled at his long glove, fortunately before he took his glove off, when it started hitting to air, you could see all these little crystals start to form on their glove. And that was actually dissolved liquid methamphetamine in an extra gas tank in the vehicle. That's the stuff we're talking about. Now we're going to tell you about the game changer. The game changer is propylene glycol. Propylene glycol, I can dissolve most any controlled drug substance I want in that and then administer it through a vape pen. So this one actually shows you diclozapam, which is an illicit benzodiazepine that was actually dissolved in propylene glycol, and then they vaped it to get a benzodiazepine high from that. It's very common with research chemicals. And the other thing that people are doing now is they're using prodrugs or controlled drug substance intermediates to traffic it, because if I take a prodrug, I can convert it over to the active drug I need. So as an example, if you actually take enalapril for your blood pressure, Vasotec, when you get that in the hospital, it's actually enalaprilat. And when I give you the IV formulation, we give you enalaprilat, not enalapril, because when we actually have you take the oral pill enalapril, the prodrug, it converts in your body to enalaprilat, the active drug. Well, when it's an IV formulation, I don't need it to convert. Well, now what they're doing is they're transporting these drugs in those prodrug forms, and then they either convert when they do some kind of acid-based or heat to them, or they actually have it convert when people actually use it. So here's xylazine. Xylazine can be snorted, it can be insufflated, it can be smoked, it can be vaped. You still get the wounds with regards to that. It has a toxidrome similar to opiates. You get CNS depression, low heart rate, respiratory depression, you get low blood pressure, meiosis to pinpoint pupils, you get sometimes a blood sugar spike, your hyperglycemia, and you will get the wounds. But oh, by the way, there's a new xylazine cousin in town, Medi or Rhinotrank. Because xylazine is called trank, we're now calling medetomidine Rhinotrank. Medetomidine is 100 times more potent than xylazine. So with law enforcement and anybody else here who's legislatively involved, I cannot stress enough, do not control xylazine in your state. We have not controlled it in New Jersey. When they did so in Pennsylvania, they made xylazine a Schedule III substance. Governor Shapiro, acting in goodwill of the citizens of Pennsylvania, signed it into law, and when he did, they had a major outbreak of medetomidine in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia right after he did so. What it shows you here is that the different parts are fentanyl, xylazine, and medetomidine. Tetracaine is in the mix. That's an anesthetic. So if you're looking to see, you're going to see medetomidine drug supply. Do you have tetracaine testing positive in these things? It could be it's in your drug supply. It's also combined frequently with parafluorofentanyl. That's also a big issue. It shows you here the combinations that they had in Pittsburgh and in Chicago. And you can see in Chicago, not only did they have parafluorofentanyl, but they also had the nitazines mixed in with medetomidine. This shows you that medetomidine, again, 100 times more potent than xylazine. Dexmedetomidine is 200 times more potent. There's always the backup to the backup to the backup. And in all honesty, with xylazine, the reason I'm saying don't control that in your Commonwealth is because of the fact xylazine we're used to dealing with in New Jersey. I'd rather deal with the devil that I know than a devil I don't know. And I don't know medetomidine well enough like we know xylazine. This shows you actually different top substances with xylazine. Again, parafluorofentanyl is highlighted for you. It's the fentanyl analog that showed up the most with xylazine, so it's important to track parafluorofentanyl in your drug supply. And then with regards to Virginia specifically, this shows you here that xylazine cases came in powder form and tablet form and liquid form and capsules. But notice parafluorofentanyl was one of the top 15 drugs with xylazine in Virginia. And notice to the far right, the 15th highest substance was medetomidine, already in your drug supply in Virginia. It's already there. If you control xylazine, it's going to be used more, just like what happened in Pennsylvania, because the medetomidine would not be controlled when xylazine is. If it couldn't get any worse, then there's also PCP, phencyclidine, angel dust. We actually have that. The red bar that's going across is the 21 counties in New Jersey. Camden County, where I work, we have the highest number of PCP cases in the state where I actually work. And if it couldn't get any worse than that, why only have PCP when you can have TCP, which is actually tenocyclidine, and that is actually a PCP analog that actually is more potent than PCP and comes in a liquid form that you can easily put in and vape. There's also gas station heroin, tianeptine. We've known about this since 2017. This is out there as well, showing you that in the data from when they looked at from 2000 to 2017, there were 217 cases. You can see it's asterisks and highlighted there. You can inhale tianeptine as well. These are some of those problems that happen to you: tachycardia, high blood pressure, agitation, confusion, kidney problems, respiratory problems, all different kinds of problems with that. And then it's after 2017, and now it's 2024, and it all goes away, except in New Jersey. We have our poison control folks released through the CDC MMWR report that, oh, by the way, it's reared its ugly head again. We had tianeptine cases called in poison control, 20 of those. Sharp increase in this. They all had altered mental status. 11 of them had a high heart rate. 10 of them had low blood pressure. 8 of them had seizures. They had a prolonged QT interval. What is that? When your heart beats, lub-dub, one heartbeat. The P wave tells your heart to beat. The T wave tells your heart to pause to the next heartbeat. Well, when you prolong that, your T wave from the previous heartbeat overlaps your P wave for your next heartbeat, and you go into sudden cardiac arrest. So that's the problem with that. 13 to 17 of these patients were admitted to ICU. 7 had to be intubated. 1 did have a cardiac arrest, but he did survive. There were no deaths. And notice when they actually seized these samples of the gas station heroin off of the streets in New Jersey, they found kavain, tianeptine, and also synthetic cannabinoids, THC, kavains from the kava plant, all other kinds of stuff in there. It wasn't just tianeptine. The major culprit here was Neptune Fix. That's what that looks at. There's also Jaja Red. There's all different kinds of formulations of tianeptine out there. What about kratom? Kratom's another one that's causing all kinds of issues. It acts like an opiate depending upon the dose. It acts like a stimulant like the dose. People will go through opiate withdrawal. It can be potentially treated with naloxone, but they will go through withdrawal and sometimes buprenorphine. And the big problem we see here is liver toxicity, including liver failure and death. And also mothers who have used it will go through withdrawal along with their child, who in the neonatal-intensive care unit will go through the morphine protocol to come off of opiate withdrawal, even though it was only kratom. So common legal and illicit vaporized substances, what's all included? This is your big summary slide. Benzodiazepines, cannabis, cathinone, CBD, crystal meth, derived psychoactive cannabis products, drugs other than nicotine, fentanyl, GBL is the GHB of Great Britain that's out there, heroin, ketamine, kratom, MDMA, medetomidine, nicotine, N,N-dimethyltryptamine, DMT, that's also out there, the nitazines, other opiates and opioids, propylene glycol, psychedelics, synthetic cannabinoids, THC, tyneptine, vegetable glycerin, vitamin A acetate, xylazine, many others, and in one paper alone summarizing 350 different chemicals from 241 products evaluated in one paper published on what's in vapes. When I had mentioned that God only knows, and even here she's not sure, that's what we're talking about. What's important if you have this kind of problem is you should actually engage in contacting poison control. You don't have to be a healthcare professional. Call 1-800-222-1222. And you can actually reach out if there's anything going on with regards to that before help gets there, if you're actually someone at home or in a private place. The other thing is, what about information to help you have your children, your cousins, your students, anyone refuse this? No thanks, they're really into whatever sport they play. Don't hold it against me, I'm still a soccer referee. I've coached for over 15 years. I still ref high school soccer and swimming. They could be in any sport they want to. No thanks, they like going to the high school or university where they are. They are into being the best trumpet player in the band. They're the top singer in the play. They want to get athletic, academic, or music scholarship. They like where they go to school. They don't want to disappoint their parents. Their parents may drug test. And the other one is actually, a big one to get them out of it is food allergies. My son has multiple nut allergies. You want to get a situation of someone you know out of a situation where they don't want to become involved in it, when they're being offered something to try. Take your child who absolutely hates cashews. They'll never eat a cashew in their entire life, but now they're allergic to cashews. And now when someone offers them something, they say, oh, you know what, I don't really know what's in there, and I have a big allergy to cashews. I can't try that stuff. Most people will back off someone not wanting to have an allergic reaction to food if they tell them they have an allergy. And that's a definite one to use. The other one is actually, what is your code or emoji? If nothing else from this entire presentation, what do you set up with family members, grandkids, your own kids, nieces and nephews, cousins, students you have, that they set up with regards to their phone, emoji that they send, or a code word if they're in trouble. So if that comes across my phone, I would call my son, hey, Eric, did you send me that word? Why would you send me that word? Yes, Dad, I did. Are you still at Pat's house? Yes, I am. Well, guess what? Grandma got really sick. She had to be rushed to the hospital. We think she has pneumonia. I'm coming to get you to go see her. Okay, Dad. And in reality, when he sends me that emoji, it means, Dad, come get me the heck out of here. And then he gets to tell everybody this great party if they grab the phone out of his hand. Goggles. Oh, yeah, I forgot my goggles for swim team practice tomorrow. But if it says, Dad, there's drugs and alcohol here, come pick me up, he's going to hear that from now till the day he graduates. But now he doesn't have to worry about it. And he can blame it on his dad because he says, Dad, being the worst parent in the world, is coming to pick me up. When in reality, it means, Dad, come get me the heck out of here. And it works like a charm. We had it with our soccer players. They set it up. They went to a party at 13 years of age, sleepover. The Jack Daniels and pills broke out. He sent his code word to his mom, got himself and two of our team players out of there. It works really well, and it's worth setting up. So the other thing is that research, educate, and prevent. For the integrity of your work, you'll be recognized, maybe not with praise or awards, but with the lives touched by your lives. Thank you for your dedication and service. This is my contact information. I need to put that on your phone. If you can take the little picture there and tell them that the person who spoke today, you have to identify as William Bill Lynch and say he was a great guy. If you think it was awful, please pick Elmer Fudd and tell him that he was actually horrible, and that's totally fine. And we'll be more than happy to answer your questions, but what I really want to get to is that emoji. How much time is left? Okay. Is the next part, because this is groundbreaking and earth-shattering information. Naloxone is not just for opiate overdoses anymore. It's for all of our cardiac patients. Oh. This is out-of-hospital cardiac arrest data that was looked at in the state of California in a published paper in August of this year, looking at people who had an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and were given naloxone, what happened to them. What's disturbing is that nearly 90% of all out-of-hospital cardiac arrests in the United States are fatal. Over 320,000 people will die. So what's important about that is that they looked at to see, it's unknown whether naloxone is beneficial in these out-of-hospital cardiac arrests. And the current leading hypothesis is that naloxone actually reverses the opiate-related myocardial depression because when you have chest pain, you release enkephalins and endorphins that actually block the chest pain. Well, we know that naloxone reverses opiates. And with regards to that, you'll stimulate catecholamine release, which means you'll release your own norepinephrine and epinephrine to trigger your own heart, with a consequent augmentation of your heart rate and your blood pressure coming back. So what they found was, again, the odds ratio here was non-drug-related out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The odds ratio was 1.6, again, above 1, so it worked. In drug-related ones, not surprising, it worked better, which we're not surprised by that data. If you're opiate overdose, you give naloxone, we know it works. But also in drug-related out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and non-drug-related ones, it also gave them a time to discharge from the hospital. And this was defined with regards to how did they respond. Well, almost 12% had increase in return of spontaneous circulation. What is that? That's actually get your pulse back, and in this study it was defined it had to last for 20 minutes or longer, or till the time they got to the hospital. And then 4% of them survived. When they went to the hospital, they got to walk out and survive their total cardiac arrest, up to including the cardiac arrests were asystole, a flat line, or pulseless electrical activity, PEA, the worst of the worst cardiac arrest you can have. They had this survival rate. So even if you take that 3.9% survival rate across 320,400 deaths, we could save an additional 12,500 Americans every year from a heart attack just by giving them naloxone. So the stigma associated with naloxone for opiate use disorder, and that's why you would have it, this is now because grandpa might have a heart attack in your house and you want to give him naloxone to wake him up, not because he had an opiate overdose, but because he's having a cardiac event. And there could be significant benefit there. What's important about this is to put it in context. So in any of these clinical trials, we have what's called the number needed to harm, NNH. How many people would be harmed giving naloxone if they've had a full-blown cardiac arrest, they're in asystole or PEA? Nobody. You can't make them any more dead. They're deader than dead, and they're the worst arrhythmias of all of them. And so now we give them naloxone, and 1 out of 9, more than 11% will have a return of spontaneous circulation that will last for 20 minutes. That's unprecedented. And then the other one is 1 out of 26 of them will walk out of the hospital. That's 4 lives saved for every 100 who have a severe cardiac arrest are going to walk out of the hospital and having survived because we gave them naloxone. Pretty interesting information. Potential benefit here is because the endogenous opioids increase mean arterial blood pressure. That's important. We give them a catecholamine. They get this exogenous catecholamines, and it's especially important for the type of arrhythmias that benefit and to reduce the stigma associated with naloxone. So to put that in context, if someone has a cardiac arrest in the hospital or outside the hospital, we give them intravenously pushed epinephrine. What's the number needed to treat to have benefit with epinephrine? 1 out of every 112. And naloxone showing you benefit out of 1 out of 9, those odds are higher. Now, in all fairness, they need to do a larger clinical trial. This was done in the San Francisco, Sacramento, California area, but in over 8,000 patients. That if this is actually shown to be beneficial, every house in America should have naloxone in their home. Every car should have it. Every person in their backpack. It's in my backpack right now. I have 2 naloxone right in there. Not just for opiate anymore. It could be for the cardiac arrest issue. And so significant data with regards to why individuals should now have naloxone, and again, to actually decrease the stigma associated with opiate use disorder, but even more importantly, to help save people having cardiac arrest. So thank you for attention, and we'll turn it back over to you with regards to your panel, but thank you for coming today and hope you found that information to be a little interesting and exciting. So thanks for your attention.